using the picture when I was 12.
Yeah. We just like to keep you humble.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Willa looks great.
Yeah. So we're going to do this Comic-Con style. If you have a question, go ahead and line up at the mic. But I have a few to kick us off. So, it was an interesting period in terms of the DC CW TV universe, because you had the cinematic universe, which, opinions aside from how you like the movies, was kind of a mess. But the TV universe seemed to be the blueprint on how to do a shared universe that crossed over. What was your perspective like getting to not only be in Arrow, but getting to be in all these other shows? And what do you feel like, Greg Berlanti and co. were really doing right?
I have to say that being able to cross over was probably my favorite part. Getting to dabble into everyone else's show was really, really cool. And David.
Yeah, that was fun. I think it was it was tough logistically.
Yes.
It was tough. Probably, tougher on the Grants and the Melissas and the Stevens of the world, because they had to really do a lot of crossovers. But I think you're right. I think Greg kind of got it right. I mean, and particularly the first 3 seasons, I think, of Arrow. I think every season was good, but those first 3 were just fire, I thought. So, yeah, I think we did a lot of things right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all the fans would agree. And it's nice to see that, even though obviously James Gunn is coming in and kind of revamping everything, including DC on TV, that we still have a semblance of, what remains with Superman and Lois on CW. Do you ever see, though, a future of it living on, or is it for you as an actor with these characters, you've kind of put it to bed?
I mean, it would be so cool to hop onto the Penguin,
Yeah.
That show is so good.
There we go, yeah.
If you could ever dream of crossing over from the CW to HBO Max.
Did you see that?
Just make sure you get all the brand names in there.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Just looking up at a building and seeing Speedy kind of run past his penguins like eye view, and goes, that'd be kind of tough.
You never know.
Yeah. Well, anything can happen. I mean, it's a perfect example that John Diggle was a character that just didn't even exist in this universe and was created, and then worked his way into canon, of course, in New 52 and the comic books. What was that like for you, though, to come in and, it's overwhelming probably to inhabit these characters that everyone has an idea of, and we have so many iterations, but you got to come in and establish yourself in kind of a backwards way.
Well, first of all, it was all you guys that did that. You guys had such a great response to John Diggle that DC actually listened and was like, all right, he's in the New 52. But I think it's just go back to Berlanti. I think just kept on striking, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Flash, Arrow, Legends, Superman and Lois, you mentioned, it was just over and over and over again, writing great characters. And the audience just kept responding to it. So, but getting back to, you talk about James Gunn, we kind of lived in the shadow of Smallville.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can kind of just remember back then in 2012, when Arrow came on, in fact, most of the crew behind the scenes were all Smallville.
Yeah.
Right? It was like every person was from Smallville. So we were kind of trying to get over that hump of the Smallville world. So now James Gunn kind of comes in and says, hey, I'm going to kind of put my mark on the shoulders of these guys. So I think even though at first we kind of went, we have to say goodbye to all this stuff, I think that's just the way it has to be.
Yeah.
I mean, we put our mark down, and now it's time for Gunn to do what he does.
Yeah. Well, and if you grew up reading these characters in comic books, that is the very origins of how this stuff works. You have your run, and then somebody comes in and puts their mark on it and their stamp, but things can always come back in an interesting way. And obviously now that cinematically we've kind of embraced the multiverse. I mean, look at Brandon being able to come back and play Superman in that way, which fans were so overwhelmed and overjoyed at. Never say never, I guess.
Oh, never say never. Yeah. And the idea of a Green Arrow on HBO. I mean,
yeah.
That's like nasty.
Yeah.
That's just nasty.
Well, and you know, I know you've talked about it a lot, but there was a lot of rumblings from fans, but also the show didn't necessarily do anything to not stoke the fires of Green Lantern with you. What was your perspective, though, kind of being on the inside of all that?
Well, we only teased it for 6 years. But again, it's, you know, there's so many things going on behind the scenes, particularly those properties were so important, they still are. And, you know, obviously Warner Brothers went through some changes, and DC went through a new president, and blah, blah. So we got yes and no's, and yes and no's, and yes and no's. So all the teasing was really legitimate. We really did feel as if this was going to go someplace. But again, it was just a very, I mean, Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart was, I think they wanted to first do a TV show that didn't mention Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart at all. I think it was supposed to be a period piece originally. I don't know where they were going to put the lanterns in the 60s. You know, and then that fell apart. There was going to be a movie, and then that fell apart. So, you know, I get it. I'm actually, you know, happy that there's a gun, James Gunn, taking over DC, right? Because I remember being in 2012, we were all just like, why aren't the universes connected? Right? And we would see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and when they talked about Thor, they were talking about that Thor. Right? So they had this kind of cohesive universe. We're like, where's our cohesive universe? And now they finally have it. We're not there in it, but at least they have it.
But never say never.
But never say never.
Hi, I'm a huge fan of the Arrow. Such an amazing show. So I'm rewatching the show, and I'm noticing some characters that are kind of driving me crazy. Like with whatever decisions they're making. Do you guys have any characters in the Arrow that just kind of bugged you or kind of irked you in whatever they were up to?
I mean, I was a little annoyed the 37th time Thea got kidnapped.
Yeah. Good call there.
Yeah.
Good call, Willa. We're all tired of that.
Like the 36th, 37th time, just being strapped to a chair. It's like, okay, guys. Really? Did you have to do that one again, Thea? You silly girl. Yeah.
Let's see. Characters just irked me. Oliver irked the hell out of me.
Yeah, when I got to
just like, it's irked me.
People always ask what my favorite day on set was, and it was when I got to shoot Oliver in the eye. That was a great day.
Yeah, he's a broody guy.
Yeah, he's pretty broody. Oliver, let me think.
I think that was a great answer.
I think so. I can't top it.
Answer.
He's not here to defend himself. Hi.
Hi, I'm Helen. Hi, hello, David. We're an Arrowverse family, and I just wanted to know, you guys do some pretty amazing weapon scenes, and I was wondering how many hours you had to train a week for those kind of scenes, and if it was an ongoing thing throughout the whole series, but also Willa, especially your scenes with John Barrowman as well.
Training for that was really fun. I gotta say, like, once I finally got to get into that part of the world, I was so excited, because it took a little while for Thea to actually get some action and stuff. But yeah, the training was amazing. I had such an incredible stunt coordinator and an incredible stunt performer helping me out the entire time. She was really, if anything, she's speedy. I gotta hand it to her. And yeah, that stuff was a lot of fun. It was probably my favorite parts.
I can't say anything better. We had James Bamford, who ended up becoming the producer director on the show, started off as our stunt choreographer, and was just fantastic. And the whole team, they have one of the best stunt teams. Shout out to my stunt guy, Marshall Bingham. This truly happened. There was an overpass that, you know, they'll be on a pulley, he would jump off, land, roll around, come up with Spartan. The fighting was me, when people went through walls and jumped off overpasses, wasn't me, it was him. And this particular day, you heard it. It popped, right? The pulley. He jumped off. It was 30 feet. Or, you know, how tall was 35 feet? When he lands, it sounds wet. Like everything just crushes, right? He rolls and lays there. Everyone screams. They run to him. Stay right there for a minute. Everybody get back, get back, get back. Call the ambulance. Comes in. The man literally stands up and limps off. Sprained ankle. Right? And this was happening. I mean, that wasn't happening. But these stunts were happening every day. It was an incredible stunt team. How Blue Bloods won Best Stunts, I have no idea over Arrow. But they did. Anyway, another story.
Okay. Out of all the crossovers in the multiverse from The Flash, Green Arrow, and the DC Legends, what were y'all's favorite crossover from like the whole show?
I feel like the first one was probably my favorite. A, because it was the easiest. Because there was the least shows to cross over at that point in time.
Right.
And then each time it became more shows and more people, so harder and harder and harder to do. So it was still fun, but just logistical nightmare. So yeah, the first one was probably the most fun, because it was like the first time we got to do it.
No, you're right, because that was the least amount of shows.
Yeah, it's like we only had 3.
We only had 3
so
shows.
it was fine.
For me, it was the last one with me and Stephen on Arrow, because we got to close out emotionally the characters and got to say goodbye. Actors, we got to say goodbye to, and so that was.
Emma, and I know there's a lot of DC questions, but Willa, I want to ask you, how was your experience working with the cast on the OC?
Just got an OC question in there, right at the buzzer. Well done.
Oh man, way to date me, girl. That was 20 years ago. Insane to think about. But I've actually just had some really adorable little reunions over the last 2 years, especially around the strike. I got to see Melinda again, and I did a little podcast with her, and that was the first time I had seen her in, I mean, I don't even want to think how many years. But I have to say, it was so, I'm very happy that that was one of my first experiences in this industry, because there were some really seasoned people there, like Peter Gallagher and Melinda, who on my first day of work pulled me aside and kind of just gave me the lowdown of how real things were about to get. And I think that if I had not had that, things would have been a lot different. And my experiences might have been a lot different. So I'm really, really grateful for the way that was my introduction into something so large at the time, because that show was so big when I got on, and it felt like a really big Goliath thing that I was trying to just hop into. But yeah, it was a very, very interesting time, but a very beautiful time. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. And thank you all. Give a huge Dallas Fan Festival